Let's go ahead and look at how do we solve inequalities. Sorry, I had to let the dog out. And solving inequalities is just like solving equations. There is one little exception. I'm going to underline there. And that exception is if you are going to multiply or divide by a negative number, then you flip the inequality symbol. With that being said, we're also going to talk about how do we graph these. So let's start with this first problem here. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to draw a line down the equal sign. Okay. We want to subtract 3 from both sides. We have 12x is greater than, all I did was subtract 3, didn't multiply or divide by a negative, so it stays the same. 147 minus 3 is 144. Now the inverse of 12 times x would be division, and we're dividing both sides by a 12. That's a positive 12, so our inequality stays the same, and we have x is greater than 12. So the process of solving inequalities is just like solving equations. Let's go ahead and look at the next one, and then I'll talk about the graphing piece. So again, we're going to draw the line down the equal sign. I'm going to go ahead and move my 3x to the other side. So if I subtract 3x, whatever I do to one side, we want to make sure we do to the other. So 2x minus 3x is a negative 1x. Bring down your subtract 7. You have less than or equal to, and that canceled, so now we have the number 4. We want to get that negative 7 to the other side. The opposite of a minus 7 would be to add 7 to both sides. So we have a negative 1x is less than or equal to 11. But it's negative 1x. We need to make that a positive. We want x all by itself. So the inverse of a negative 1 times x would be to divide. And here is where we are dividing by a negative. When you multiply or divide by a negative, your inequality symbol flips. And 11 divided by negative 1 is negative 11. So I wanted to show you how to go through and solve those. The only difference is that if you multiply or divide by a negative number, so if you talk it out loud and say multiply by negative 2, then that's when you flip that inequality. Let's go ahead and talk about the graphing piece. And when we graph, we're going to graph, these are one variable, meaning there's only one letter in the problem, so we're going to graph on a number line here. So for the first one, 12, I always tell you, and I said this earlier this year, the answer can go right in the middle. What's one less than the answer? That would be 11. And one greater than the answer would be 13. And then because it's just x is a greater than symbol, we have an open circle. Make it very clear on your graphs so I know that it is an open circle. And x is greater than 12. Well, ask yourself, is 11 greater than 12 or is 13 greater than 12? Well, we know 13 is, so we're going to shade to the right. And that's it. That's the graph that goes with solving that inequality. Let's go ahead and do the second inequality. Again, I tell you just to go ahead and put the answer right in the middle. Now you got to be careful here. 1 less than negative 11 is a negative 12. And 1 greater or bigger is a negative 10. We got to be careful when we have our negatives. Picture a number line or Google a number line if you need to see it. This one says x is greater than or equal to. That means we're going to have this closed circle. Make it very obvious. You can tell the difference between my open circle and my closed circle. And greater than, x is greater than negative 11. So that is also shading to the right. So that's solving inequalities, solving and graphing them. Again, a review, super important concept. Have a good one.